Okay, great. Lovely. So, we are still on the Firm Foundations. Where have I put my clicker? Oh, it's there. Sorry. We're still on the Firm Foundations series that Dad started last week. He spoke about gospel, and this week we're speaking about church. Now, I know it sounds really strange because we're in church. It feels like, I know what church is. Why do I need to learn about it? But I thought what would be good is just to kind of reflect on actually and challenge our views on actually what we think church is and what it looks like. But before we start, Dad last week put out a really nice, helpful handout of all the verses because we kind of go through a lot at once. I was not that organised, and so I've got, if this works. Oh, don't do this to me. Helps if I turn it on. A list. So if you want to take a photo of that right now, you've got about 10 seconds to take a picture of that. So then later on, if you miss any of the verses or anything like that, they'll be on the screen for you. No, I will wait. There's no rush. It's fine. No, sorry. I realised, saying 10 seconds just induces that, my phone's not working. Oh, dear. Are we good? Everyone taking a photo that needs to take a photo? Good. Cool. Okay, so we're speaking about the church. And before I even started, I wanted to play a little game. So you do have to participate. Which is, I'm going to show a series of photographs, and I want you to put your hand up if you think it's church. And basically, you can either keep your hand up or put it down, and by the end of it, it'll be fascinating to see who thinks what. So, did I do a blank side? Right. So this is picture number 1. Do we think it's church? Put your hand up if you think you do. Okay. This is church number 2. Picture number 2. Do we think it's church? Okay. Still church? Okay. Still church? This isn't meant to be a trick question, by the way. I can see panic on people's faces. Are we still thinking church? Okay. Do you think this is church? Roz is just like, it definitely is. Do we think this is church? Okay. Church? Church? Okay. Church? Church? Still church? Still church? Last one, still church. So fun fact, they're all church. So people that put their hands up, it wasn't meant to be a trick question, but I think what's interesting is just seeing our views on what we think church looks like. Do we think it is the building? Do we think it is a gathering of people, but at least you've got your Bible out? Or does it look like food bank? Does it look like street pastors? Does it look like going to the elderly or anyone in hospital? All of that. And I literally saw Darren every time. He's like, yes, this is it. Because he's right. It's all church. And so I just wanted to straight away get into, or help our brains get into the knowledge that church doesn't look like these 4 walls. Like, this might be a church, but it's not the church. Do you see the difference? So there's 2 kind of things that we're talking about. There's the building, and that's really nice. But at the end of the day, if this was this building and no one was in it, no one was doing anything in it, it's just empty chairs, it wouldn't be the church. It would just be an empty building, right? There's no Jesus. There's no one praising his name. There's no one giving him glory. There's just chairs. So it's thinking about actually what do we mean when we mean church. I can't remember if I put this one up. No, good, okay. So Matthew 18:20, most of these are from the NIV version, I'll tell you if it's not, but it says, for where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am among them. So again, it's all those pictures of, it's the coffee shops, it's the eating with others, it's spending time reading the word, being on that Zoom prayer meeting, it's all of those is the church, because all it takes is a couple of us to get together and have the focus of Jesus. You're in church. That's it. It doesn't have to be here. It doesn't have to be in another church. It doesn't have to be anywhere. It could be outside in the park somewhere. 2 or 3 are gathered in Jesus' name. You're in church. And it's funny, at university, one of my close friends, we were in a small group, and if you don't know what it is, it's kind of like a Kairos group. You kind of get together, we'd eat together, and we'd study the word. And I remember chatting to her, and quite honestly, I did idolise her a little bit. I just thought, wow, this woman is so holy. Which later on is funny because she's like, Annie, I don't know why you thought that, because I really wasn't. But anyway, but I remember talking to her. We were chatting about our different home churches. She comes from Chester. So we were talking about our different home churches, and she asked what my church was like. And I said, we're a really family-orientated church. Anyone's welcome. We've got quite a simple building. It's nothing super special. What's your church like? And she's like, yeah, it's just a few of us just meet at my mum's house. And I'm like, that doesn't sound very holy. It's not church. You're not in a building. You're not attending church. And at the time, I was like, oh no, this person I thought was really holy suddenly doesn't attend church. And then, quite honestly, after a while, it's weird because I actually contemplated this quite a lot, and God gave me the very obvious revelation that of course she goes to church. Like, of course she goes to church. It's just not in a church building, right? And it really challenged the way I thought about it, and was like, went back to this Matthew verse and thinking, oh right, church doesn't have to look like a building. It doesn't even have to look like anything mildly religious. It just has to look like celebrating Jesus and being more than one of you. And, as we think about us being the church, so not a church, the church, that's us, that's as a collective, is thinking about what we think that looks like and what it should entail. And so the first one I think is really, really key is the church should be a place of fellowship. And what I mean by that is being with one another, like really plainly and simply. That's why the Bible verse says 2 or 3 are gathered. It doesn't say 1, because we're made to be in fellowship with one another. We're made to support one another, to have access to other people and to lean on each other in support. I'm not going to read all the verses out now, and I can't remember if I did put it. Okay, so you can look this up. This is why it was on the list. But Romans 12, 4-21, I might read a little bit actually, gives us a picture of how we should behave and how we should be with one another. I'm going to look it up. I don't know why I said I didn't, but bear with. Okay. So yeah, if you look up Romans 12 and then read from verse 4, it says, "For just as each of us have one body with many members, and these members do not all have the same function, so is in Christ we, though many, form one body, and each member belongs to all the others. We have different gifts according to the grace given to each other. If your gift is prophesying, then prophesy in accordance with your faith. If it's serving, then serve. If it's teaching, then teach. If it is to encourage, then give encouragement. And if it is giving, then give generously. If it is to lead, do diligently. And if it is to show mercy, do it cheerfully." And if you read from verse 9, it talks about love and kind of how, or what that should look like, and being faithful in prayer. Verse 14 says, "Bless those who persecute you, bless and do not curse. Rejoice with those who rejoice, mourn with those who mourn. Live in harmony with one another." Again, they're just a few of the verses, but the overall picture that Jesus is giving is we need each other. We need to be in one collective, one family, and that also means families are messy. Galatians, did I put it down? Yeah. Galatians 3, verses 28-29, this is actually from the New King James Version, is, "There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither slave nor free, there is neither male nor female, for you are all one in Jesus Christ. And if you are Christ, then you are from Abraham's seed and heirs according to the promise." That means no one is discriminated against. That means absolutely anybody can walk through the doors, anybody can join your prayer group, anybody can join your coffee time, or in the park or wherever, because that's what church looks like. It doesn't look like, quite frankly, like us sitting quietly and, getting on with our day and not discussing our worries and our concerns and everything like that with others. It looks messy. It looks diverse. It looks different. You are not going to see the same people in your church. And if everyone is a carbon copy of you, then I'm not entirely sure you're in church. because God calls us to be all different kinds of people, right? And even now, no one's a twin here. No one's looking the same. No one is the same. We're all welcome in God's kingdom. And that also means that those people, if we're thinking about we are the church, those people need to be in our lives. They need to be in our homes, in our friendship groups. That is exactly what Jesus did, and that's what he encourages us to do. Ecclesiastes 4:9-10 says, 2 are better than one because they have a good return for their labour. If either of them falls down, one can help each other up. Again, it's that fellowship. There's so many verses in the Bible that talk about being together. And the reason is because it's so difficult to bring yourself up by yourself. I don't know, anyone that has spent time struggling and not reached out to somebody else will know this, will know it's really, really difficult to do life by yourself. Jesus had 12 disciples because he believed in fellowship. Even though he was the perfect one, the one that, was without sin, and he could have done it all by himself, he set the example to go, we need each other. We need one another to support one another, to question one another, to challenge one another. That is what church looks like. If these seats are empty, if these four walls are just there, no one's challenging each other. No one's saying, can you help me with this? There's nothing, it's empty. We are the church. There's a word in the Bible which Jesus uses called ecclesia, which is actually, when he talks about his church, it actually means gathering. So again, Jesus is very obvious in using the words in the Bible to talk about, he doesn't describe four walls. He doesn't describe a Sunday morning. He doesn't describe 3 hours of, you get in, you say hello, you hear the worship, you hear the preach, bish, bash, bosh, done. He talks about gathering, being with others, being together. And, one of the best things I think about being around other people is the best conversations I think happen around the dinner table or around the lunch table or breakfast or coffee or whatever. Basically, it's got to have food. And I think it's very biblical that food is involved, right? But, it's part of fellowship. One of those pictures was literally just everyone having dinner. Like, when was the last time you invited someone from the church over for dinner? When was the last time you invited a friend that doesn't know Jesus over for lunch or for a coffee? Our lives are so busy, and I'm 100% guilty of it. I'll play the mum card till the cows come home. I'm like, I'm a mum and I work. I've got no time to see people. Right, my social life is like nil, zero. But that's not what church looks like. Church is supposed to be inviting. It's supposed to it's inclusive. It helps other people. And so when we're thinking about the church, think about what the church looks like in your homes, in your workplaces, in your family meetups, in your daily life. It's got to involve other people. It's got to. And it's also, it's pants being by yourself. Like, no, it's not nice. You want to be around other people. So the church should involve fellowship. The church should be gospel-centred. Of course, we know this, but the really sad reality is there are plenty of churches out there claiming to be a church and they're not. And you might know somewhere local. I'm thinking across the pond, maybe. There are many churches that get this wrong. But at the end of the day, if we're looking at the Bible, if we're reading the Word, if we're leaning on God and going, God, what are you saying today? Then you're probably in a good spot. It's a bit small on there. Ephesians 2:18-22 says, for through him we have access to the Father by one Spirit. Consequently, you are no longer foreigners or strangers, but fellow citizens with God's people and also members of his household, built on the foundations of the apostles and prophets, with Jesus Christ himself as the chief cornerstone. In him the whole building is joined together and rises to become a holy temple in the Lord. And in him you too are being built together to become a dwelling in which God lives by his Spirit. There's a difference between meeting someone for coffee and having a chit chat and that's fine. There's literally nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying don't do that. And then there's a difference between meeting someone for coffee, knowing that the person opposite you or the person next to you has a need, or knowing that they've asked you about something and they want prayer, or knowing that they're in need right now and they haven't even asked for it, but you just have this aching of, God, what do you want me to say to this person? There's a difference, and the difference is having Jesus at the centre. Again, this church would be absolutely useless if we were all here just having a cup of tea and no one ever spoke about Jesus, no one ever spoke about the Bible, no one ever spoke about the gospel. You see those groups all over the place, right? They're nothing new. But what makes the church is Jesus. He's got to be at the centre. Matthew 28:18-20 says, "Then Jesus came to them and said, 'All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely I am with you always to the very end of the age.'" And you know, I reckon if you just, I mean, you can do after this, but if you literally just spent 5 minutes or 10 minutes chatting to anybody in this room and say, what has Jesus done in your life? I can almost guarantee, I'm pretty certain, people would give you more than one. That Jesus impacts lives, that Jesus changes lives. That's the difference. That's the church. It's the impact Jesus has in our lives. And that's something we need to share. That is the good news, right? We talk about it at Easter, we talk about it at other circumstances where we want to share the good news. But the reality is, it's selfish to keep this good news to ourselves. Once we know Jesus, once we've heard his voice, once we are in his presence, you will want to share that with somebody else. I can guarantee it. And that might be scary, that might be so outside your comfort zone, it's unbelievable. But Jesus has called us to share what he shared with us with other people. Again, it's that we need fellowship, we need to hang out with other people in order to share God's word. Again, it's the church, it's sharing what God has designed for us. And that can look like on the streets. Like I remember there was a guy called Harvey that was here that did street pastoring for a little bit. And at the time, I felt like it was such a new thing. I was like, I've never heard of someone just like helping out. And I'd heard of people, you know, that on the streets and they'll just like spread the gospel, fine. But I'd never heard of street pastoring before. And again, it was like a fresh revelation to me that I'm like, you can share church outside of church. Who knew? Interesting. It's just, again, you know, this was like in my teens when I'm just trying to learn everything all at once. But it's this revelation that Jesus has to be at the centre and our church life should be gospel-centred. Again, we're not talking about on a Sunday morning, of course, when we're here, obviously gospel-centred. But if we're being a member of the church, our lives have to be gospel-centred. They have to be at the heart where Jesus is. Otherwise, it means nothing. Otherwise, we're just talking waffle. John 14:6 says, Jesus answered, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Once you know Jesus, and once you've experienced and encountered him, you know. You have the knowledge, you have the heart, and you have access to the Holy Spirit and all those sorts of things. But the Bible talks about people that don't know Jesus are blind. They don't even know what they're walking into. They don't know what they don't know, right? And so as Christians, when we know God and we have a relationship with him, our job is to point them in the right direction. And I don't mean as in like, we don't have any spiritual power, we don't have any authority to suddenly wake somebody up. That's God's job, right? But we do have a obligation to share the good news, to try and open someone else's eyes who may not even know what they're walking into. They don't even know which path they're on. They don't even know what journey they're about to start. And as believers and as the church, part of our job is to share that, is to point people in the direction of Jesus. And I wanted to show you quickly, I don't know where my husband's gone, so maybe someone go grab him. I wanted to show you quickly a clip, right? And this is a 3-minute clip. It's all right. I'll talk. It's a 3-minute clip of someone basically sharing the gospel in 3 minutes. Super simple, very effective. And so when we're watching this, I just want us to think about, what can we do in 3 minutes? Have a cup of tea. Love that. You could definitely have a cup of tea with someone and talk for 3 minutes, right? I've spoken to most of you. You could talk for 3 minutes, right? And so, yeah, it's thinking about, okay, how can we use our time wisely? How can we use that fellowship, that social time wisely? Do we know where Chris is? Darren's doing it. He did it. Yes, legend. Right, let's watch the clip and I'll come back.
Why did Jesus have to die? You know, that's a question that we all ask at some point, and I want to explain it in a way that might make sense with a visual. You see, Jesus came to take the punishment of our sin, the sin that you have done or would ever do. That's what he came to do. And see, you here look pretty good. I mean, come on, you look nice and clean, just the way you were meant to be. Oh, I could drink you up. But we've all done stuff that we shouldn't do. We've all sinned in different ways. And the problem is when we sin and we bring sin into our lives, it changes us. It changes who we are, and suddenly there's elements in us that weren't meant to be there. Maybe it's bad attitudes, or you yelled at your parents, or you lied to a friend, or you cheated on a test, or you hurt someone, or you hurt yourself. Whatever it might be, it's not the way you were meant to be. And God saw this, and he didn't want it to be this way. He said, this was not how I intended you to be. So God had a perfect rescue plan. And that rescue plan was Jesus. Now, Jesus was perfect. He came and he lived a perfect life. He was without sin. So the question was, what would happen if Jesus took the sin of the whole world, all of the sin, and put it in himself? And so he went to the cross and he took our sin. And Jesus took all that sin and put it in himself. But that's the thing, is Jesus took our sin to the grave, but then he left it there. He left that sin in the grave, and he came back with new life for all of us. And he was still perfect and pure and blameless and everything that we needed. And so you, with all of our sin and with all that's inside of us, you have the ability to say yes to Jesus, because we don't need sin anymore. Sin has been defeated by the power of the cross and what Jesus did and the power of his resurrection. And so when you say yes to Jesus and you ask him to fill you with his power, it changes everything. Jesus brings freedom. You couldn't have taken this out on your own. You could not remove the sin from yourself. Only Jesus could do that, because he died and rose again to defeat the power of sin and bring us true freedom. And that's why Jesus had to die.
I know what's happening with the screen. It's all good. Oh, you guys are legends. Do I have a blank slide? No. That it takes 3 minutes to share the gospel with someone, right? Or it takes 3 minutes to show someone that you're different, that you look different, that you act different, that you behave different, that your lifestyle is different, because it has Jesus at the center. And if we're not representing that as the church, then we're failing. If we're not representing Jesus, then we've missed it. Because he is the one that should be the center of it all. Are we on Romans? Good. Romans 1:16 says, "For I am not ashamed of the gospel, because it is the power of God that brings salvation to everyone who believes, first to the Jew, then to the Gentile." You know, God has gifted us so many amazing things in just this church, in just the I'm not going to count 20 of us, 30 of us, I don't even know, maybe less than that. You know, God has done amazing things in our lives, and it's something to shout about. It's something to get excited over. It was my birthday last week, and as you do, people buy you presents, don't they, right? And Chris got me some really nice, really soft, cozy pajamas, and I've basically been living in them for the last week or so. Like every time I get in from work, I'm like, pajamas, need to wear these pajamas, because they're so comfy, they're so cozy, and I'm excited. Sounds my life is a bit lame. I was excited to come home and put on these pajamas, right? And it sounds silly, but it's something if I'm getting so excited about just coming home and wearing pajamas, right? It's like so simple in my life. Why am I not getting excited for the one who died for me, for the one that took absolutely every guilt, shame, anything that I was carrying and took that all away, the one that carries me every day, the one that brings me joy, that shows me things that I never saw before? That stuff is exciting. Yeah, wearing pajamas is all right, you know, it's nice and all, but God is the exciting one. The gospel is the exciting thing. It should be the center. Church should look after those in need. Acts 20 verses 28 to 32 says, "Keep watch over yourselves and all the flock of which the Holy Spirit has made you overseers. Be shepherds of the church of God, which he brought with his own blood. I know that after I leave, savage wolves will come in among you, and will not spare the flock. Even from your own number, men will arise and distort the truth in order to draw away disciples after them. So be on your guard. Remember that for 3 years I never stopped warning each of you night and day with tears. Now I commit you to God and to the word of his grace, which can build you up and give you an inheritance among all those who are sanctified." I can never remember if I did blank slides. You know, we have a hurting world. We have a world that doesn't understand what maybe we understand. We have a world that is looking for answers in all the wrong places. You only need to switch on the news, guys, to see that there are people, some people in power, that are not great. And there are people looking for answers, and we know what that answer is. We've got it. It's in the Bible. We've got it in our hearts. That's what God gifted us. He gifted us the knowledge the minute he unveiled himself to us. There's a Casting Crowns song that says, "Break my heart for what breaks yours." And I've found that when I pray that, boy, do I get emotional. Because there are so many things that are breaking God's heart right now that I'm not even aware of, that I literally let me pass by all the time. And my personal prayer and my personal goal is to try and get closer to what is breaking God's heart in order for me to step in. And it's not because I'm magic or I'm anything special, but because I want to serve those in need. Again, the Bible is so clear on how we should help people, and it doesn't shy away from the fact that we need to do our bit. And that's what church should look like. It should look like not just hearing a sermon on a Sunday morning, not just listening to your favourite podcast, not just reading the Bible in your own personal time. It's about putting it into action. That's just as important as seeking God first. They should come hand in hand. James 2 verses 14 to 17 says, "What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? Suppose a brother or a sister is without clothes and daily food. If one of you says to them, 'Go in peace, keep warm and well fed,' but does nothing about their physical needs, what good is it? In the same way, faith by itself, if it is not accomplished by action, is dead." And that is a really tough statement to hear sometimes. I've read that a few times of like, faith isn't enough, and thought, oh, well, I thought I did a pretty good job, but I haven't really done anything about it. And then realised it's always brought me back to those verses that is, we need to do both, right? We need to listen, learn, put it into action. They all come as a chain reaction. They come hand in hand. And that can look like, again, the pictures, the pictures that I showed earlier, that is, you know what, someone has had an operation recently and they're not going to be able to cook. So cook them a meal, drop it round. Someone's struggling for money, just pop them a little food voucher or say, I'm going to cover your shopping this week. I don't want any arguments because some of you argue, right? Some of you will go, no, don't do it, right? Just accept the help, okay? We need to be an active church. On the last days when I was pregnant, knowing that we were going to have Joshua and panicking about it all, Kerry organised a meal train for us. And that meant that basically people signed up for, a couple of weeks in a row and provided us a meal. So it meant that when we're in the thick of newborn life, not even knowing, what day, time, night, whatever was going on, that we could just shove something in the oven or shove something in the microwave and that was dinner done. I cannot tell you what a blessing that was. I honestly, when they say you need a village to help you, you really, really do. But just that, right? And maybe to some people it wasn't that big of a deal. Maybe to some people it's like, oh yeah, well I just whacked that in the oven and gave it to you in a dish and bish bash wash done. But for us, it meant everything because we were in the thick of figuring out newborn life. Don't underestimate what action can do for somebody. That impact that you have on somebody else is probably beyond what you can comprehend. It means everything when we take notice of people's needs, and that's not just in this church, it's outside as well. You see someone, I've had it before and I've only had it twice and it is scary but I've heard twice when I'm just walking along and God says, talk to that person. Oh boy, was I shaking. I'm like, Jesus, please pick somebody else, please. Right? And both those times, one was actually to go into a coffee shop and sit down with someone, and the other time was to talk to a homeless guy. And both times, they were in need. I didn't know really about the person in Costa, but they'd had a family situation and it had just gone absolutely just upside down. And they just needed a friend. They just needed someone to talk to kind of offload. And I was actually with somebody else, but we were able to do that. And the other one was a homeless guy and had been given, teas and coffees and things like the normal kind of stuff, but no one had spoken to him about Jesus. And again, it's almost like intertwining the fellowship, the gospel-centered, and now the, serving those in need. They're all essential if we want to help people, and they're all essential if we want to bring Jesus to the centre. And I think there's certain things that we've done in the past as a church, like personally this church, that have impacted people's lives. And I don't think it's unfair to say, because I feel like I've heard this from a few people, so sorry if I'm about to offend anybody, but there are certain things that we could do more in as a church. I've had conversations with people, I've questioned other people that's like, can we do more for our community? What are we missing? Like, what needs are we not meeting at the moment? And that should be the question on all of our lips, right? What can we do? What need is there to be met? And how we can do that. It only took David Tate literally I think he went, someone correct me maybe, but he went to like a conference and found out about Trussell Trust. He spoke to one of the what was it? Oh, it's Guy. Oh, went to a conference. Okay. Oh, no. Oh, yeah, of course it was. Yeah. So I went to Big Church Day Out, saw this stall and was like, we should be doing that. And just brought the idea. And now years and years later, we facilitate that. Bromley Food Bank is still operating in our building. And yes, maybe not us, like not one of us is, running it, but that we definitely volunteered for a while. People stepped in and did their bit. And again, it's something so simple to give your time, but as a church, we should be creating those spaces, warm space, the come and chat, all of those matter. Don't underestimate how special they are to some people, and that's what the church should look like. And I know, again, money is such an issue all the time. I get that, I really, really do. But God blesses those who use their money for the kingdom. So if you're in the supermarket and you see the food bank trolley thing, put something in it. 59p or whatever it is for a tin of soup, right? Or a tin of beans or whatever it is. that could make the difference for somebody that's in need. That's what we're being called to do as the church. Proverbs 3:9-10 says, "Honor the Lord with your wealth, with the first fruits of all your crops. Then your barns will be filled to overflowing, and your vats will brim over with new wine." There have been times that, hello you, there have been times that me and Chris have had the opportunity to help someone out financially. And that's not because we're super special. It's not because we're super rich, and it's not for me to shout about and say, "Oh, look what amazing people we are." I'm saying it because we wouldn't have had those opportunities if God hadn't put the finances in place in the first place, if that makes sense. You know, it's so easy to kind of take what we have for granted and want to save our money and want to keep it, and you know, you have to pay bills and the mortgage and all that sort of stuff. But I promise you, if you're using your money for the kingdom, God will sow back into your life. He always provides what he wants to bring him glory. And the last one that we should do is the church should reflect the love of Christ. It's a super obvious one again, but there's definitely been times in my life where I'm not having a good day. And maybe I just haven't been the best reflection of Jesus, but it's what we're called to do. Ephesians 5:1-2 says, "Follow God's example, therefore, as dearly loved children, and walk in the way of love, just as Christ loved us and gave himself up for us as a fragrant offering and sacrifice to God." John 13:34-35 says, "A new command I give you, love one another. As I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples, if you love one another." And again, it sounds simple, but it's hard to do when you're having a rough day, or when someone's hurt you, or when you're just not feeling it. The idea to be loving towards someone is really tough, but we're still called to do it. We're still called as the church to represent the love of Jesus. And, you know, when I was in secondary school, as you do, you wear a uniform. And I basically was like, I can't wait to get out of the building to like take my blazer off and just be non-conformist Annie. I was very like, must be in the rules, went to a grammar school, so everything was, you know, set rule by rule sort of thing. And then when I got out of the school gates, I'm like, yes, I'm free sort of thing. I did not like school. But I remember my teacher, so teachers started hanging out at the bus stop, and you'd be like, oh gosh, they're following us, why are you here? And I remember us all sitting in an assembly, and our head of year was like, if you're wearing the uniform, you're representing the school. Don't be an idiot on the bus. Don't be an idiot when you're in the shops. You're representing the school. You're in the uniform, you're representing the school. If you don't like it, tough. That's the way it goes. And I sat there and I was like, oh come on, like, give off a little bit. Look, like, so now I've got to be nice in school and outside of school. This is unbelievable. And but the reality is, they were right. If I'd been rude on the bus, I tried not to be, but we all were teenagers once. And if I was rude on the bus or playing music out loud, someone would know who to contact if they wanted to make a complaint. It would be my school, because I had the uniform on. It was very easy for someone to spot and go, oh, they're a Chinsida. Well, we know who to email and say, your Chinsida students weren't very good the other day. You're representing. And when we want to call ourselves Christian or call ourselves, or say that we're in relationship with Jesus, we're putting on uniform. Every day, you're representing that. And unfortunately, again, whether you like it or not, people look at the church all the time to pick holes, to say, oh, you're not doing this right. Didn't the Bible say this? You're not doing that right. You are putting on the uniform every day by being the church. And so represent it. Again, it's, you know, there are times where maybe we don't want to be a Christian, or maybe we don't want to be the all loving, the all welcoming, the all... Yeah, we could socialise till, you know, late at night. Sometimes we just want to be ourselves and just be, you know, rude and mutter under our breath and whatever. I've done it, it's fine. But the reality is people are still watching. People watch. It's amazing what the world wants to pick holes at. So just be aware, you've got the uniform on. Be aware that you're representing the love of Jesus, and what do you want that to look like? What do you want people to say, that's why you're different. Oh, that's why you're more patient. That's why you're kinder. That's why you understand me a bit better. That's why you're a good listener. And you can go, yeah, because I really try and show the love of Jesus as much as I possibly can. That's being the church. And I really could do a whole sermon on the love of Jesus. There's so much in the Bible about it. But showing the love of Jesus looks so many different ways. So again, don't underestimate yourself and go, I don't really know how to do that. You do. You really do. Because you text people. You say, I'm praying for them. You make someone a cup of tea. You don't pop round my house. I don't like impromptu visits. But you pop round people's houses to check on them or give them a gift. You're praying for someone. They're all acts of love. You're showing Jesus in the everyday. It doesn't have to be written in the sky or, plastered all over your social media to show Jesus. So don't underestimate yourself. But know that you're called to show the love of Jesus if you want to say you're part of the church. 1 Corinthians 13 verses 1-3 says, if I speak in the tongue of men or of angels but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have faith that can move mountains but do not love, I'm nothing. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast but do not have love, I gain nothing. Again, I think quite a tough statement to hear. That not only, God calls us to do the tough stuff, right? Not only do we need to put faith into action, but at the centre has got to be love. And that's not the Annie version of love that comes and goes, that is related to whether I've had a good day or a bad day. It's Jesus' love. And have I got? I'm going to stand to the side. A few people in the church will know what it's like when something in your body doesn't function the way it's supposed to. Just chat to Ros, Ben, or Nina, right? They'll tell you. It sucks when something in your body doesn't function well or doesn't function the way it's supposed to. And if you are the church, you are part of the body. You play a part in that. And when we don't function the way the Bible instructs us to or the way Jesus calls us to, the church crumbles. The church has flaws. And of course, we're all going to have flaws because we're human beings. But what I mean is, if the church is in any way not showing the love of Jesus, is not serving those in need, is not creating fellowship opportunities, is not gospel-centered, then you fall apart. And there have been multiple churches in the news that has happened to, from right up to the top, at the top of the leadership. So we also need to be making each other accountable and going, when you said that, I think you probably could have said it in a different way to be more loving. Or as a church, I had this idea, can we meet this need by doing this? You're so special and you're so valuable to the church. Again, don't underestimate yourself. God calls you in this specific church for a reason. And that means all our neurodiversity, all our mental health struggles, all our aches and pains and ailments, all our mood swings, we need it all to function as a body. And so don't count yourself out. You've got something special. God put something special inside of you, and we need that to be the church. And we read a verse at the very start that talked about if your gift is prophecy, then prophesy. If your gift is leading, lead. Our bodies would be really weird if we had 10 eyes or 7 arms or no toes. It wouldn't function properly. It wouldn't function the way it's designed. You are all, every single one of you sitting in this room, looking at online, everything, are valuable and play a part in church. And I really do not care whether it is doing what I'm doing, speaking at the front, welcoming people, putting out the chairs, doing all those jobs that no one ever sees, right? It's all valuable. It's all special. It's all part of being the church. So keep doing what you're doing. I would say, you need to put yourself on a team or whatever. But I know most of you are already on a team. Most of you are already serving. And that's awesome. And that shows that the church is trying to function the best it possibly can. But we need each other. We need to be in fellowship. We need to have God at the center of our conversations. We need to show love wherever we can, and we need to serve people in need. And if you don't know where to start, just look at our 4 mission statements. They're on the wall for a reason. If you're not sure what our purpose is or what your purpose is in the church, just have a read at the 4. It will show you. We are imperfect people. That's the fellowship part. We need to be amongst one another, and that looks messy. We've got to follow Jesus. That's the gospel-centered bit. We've got to have him at the center. We have to surrender ourselves. That means putting aside maybe our feelings and love people regardless. And we need to serve others, look after each other, figure out what needs need to be met. And so I know we've gone a little bit over time, but I just want to spend some time being an active body. Because without action, faith is nothing, right? And so I just want to play a song, and you can do a number of things in this time. It's about 4 minutes long, so it's not super long. You can do one. You can sit and ask Jesus where your heart is at today. What is he calling you to do to be part of the church? Not this church in particular, not what should we do to the building, what paint, we should colour the walls or whatever. It's about, God, what do you want me to do to be part of the church? That's number one. The second one is, if you are specifically wanting prayer over something, and we have a WhatsApp group and a Facebook group, and that is absolutely wonderful, and I think it does really well. But if there's something you haven't told somebody else and you want prayer for today, ask someone next to you to pray for you. You don't need to come up the front. There's nothing special about the front. Ask somebody, or just put your hand up. Someone from the body will come pray for you. They will. So that's number 2. Number 3 is, if you feel like there is a need that we are not meeting in the church at the moment, if there's something you've spotted, just like Guy and David spotted that Trussell Trust food bank stall, if there's something that you think we could do more, there's bits of paper here. I didn't put any pens, so probably I need to grab some pens from the back. But there's bits of paper here. You can write something on and put it in the bowl. You don't need to put your name. You don't need to put anything, anything that I can track you with. But it's just ideas. And I'll put that, you're right, Ross. And I'll put that to the leadership team, and we can discuss that. We can look at those and go, okay, we could try one or 2 or 3 of those things. That's number 3. Or the 4th one is, if you feel lost, if you feel like you're just not fitting in, or you don't know where to start with being part of the church, come up here and I'll pray for you. Because let me tell you, the enemy wants to tell you lies all the time. The enemy wants to tell you that you're not welcome, that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy enough to be part of the church, or whatever rubbish the enemy tries to tell you. I want to tell you, it's lies. So if you are having something in your brain or that little voice telling you that you're not part of this family, come to the front and I will pray with you, because those lies are not welcome in God's kingdom. They're not. And then when we're finished, I'll close in prayer, and then we're going to have fellowship with one another. So we're going to put that in practice as well. So I'm going to stand here. You can do one of those 4 things, and we'll just see how it goes. thank you that you are with us every step of the way, that you are in our everyday lives. Lord, help us to see the needs of people around us that need to be met. Help us love people the way you love us. Help us keep you always at the center. It's never about me, it's about you always. And Lord, help us to make room for each other, to make room for the inconvenient, to make room for the difficult and the hard. Lord, help open up our hearts to be more like you. In your name, amen.